Good.
When you're starting to, when you use a centrifuge, one of the most important things you have to remember is that the centrifuge works on having the equal amount of weight on either side. So you have to balance the centrifuge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you don't balance it, it's going to do what your washing machine does sometime. If you have one piece of heavy clothing, you can actually start to walk around. Okay, and it's bad enough when one of these gets unbalanced and it will literally move off the table and fall down. Whenever you work in a lab and you're about to use your ultra centrifuge, which I told you runs at 100,000 RPM, they always give you horror stories of how the centrifuge walked through a wall and all of this stuff. You don't want to do that. So you always have to balance your centrifuge tips, and it's by it's by weight, and the way you control the weight is by volume for us, right? So you want to make sure it has the same amount of liquid, right? You're using the same size tubes and also the same amount of liquid. That's critical. Okay. So, and if you look at the numbers here, it seems as if you have to have only even numbers, but there are ways to balance odd number tubes as well, and you'll figure that out when you guys use it. So go ahead and put your tubes in. And, different people have different system for how they put the tubes in. I always like to put my tubes in with the caps outside. The reason for that is when you spin it with the caps outside, your final cell pellet is going to end up outside. You know exactly what to expect. So if you tend to put it in one way at one time and one way at the other, you may not always see where the pellet. It comes from the days when we used to do DNA preps, and you had to, the DNA pellet used to be very clear. And if you didn't know where to expect your pellet, you wouldn't know how to deal with it. So that's why I'm paranoid about always having the edges outside. You guys don't have to necessarily follow that. But. Okay, so then you make sure it's balanced, and then you close it. And
so if it wasn't balanced, would you do 1,500 milliliters?
Yes.
Or microliters of something in one of these tubes and
exactly.
just put it on the other side?
Exactly. You just make up a balanced tube. And these tubes that are sitting around here were created for that, and then sometimes they end up disappearing. But it's good to keep tubes here. If you have balanced tubes of known volume, in fact, in some labs there will be a whole set of tubes with all the volumes that they normally use labeled on them. So.
Is there a specific kind of liquid you use?
No, just water. Most of our solutions are water-based anyway. So. Okay, so then you set up the time, and every centrifuge has its own little quirks. We want to spin for 1 minute, but our centrifuge here doesn't always spin if you just set it for 1 minute. So you want to set it for 5 and then use a timer for the minute, okay? And we have timers, I believe, over there. Can you
this one right here.
See if... Okay, there we go. Here's a timer, so this is set for 1 minute already, right? So, and depending, so cells are easy to pellet, so 1 minute should be fine. This is set at maximum speed, which is 13,000 RPM, okay? And there's a way to, so the RPM is based on the size of the centrifuge, and then you can actually have a conversion to gravitational, you can convert it to so many G's that we're running at, okay? So I'm going to start this and then start the timer. It'll, we'll turn it off at 1 minute. Okay. There we go. You have to make sure the lid light comes on. Turn it on.
Does the 1 minute include slowdown time?
Not necessarily. For this thing, it's not really that